Hello, welcome. Did you miss us? We did. I'm so excited to be back to bring you another episode of Highlife Music Deconstructed. If this is your first time with us, welcome. Let me tell you a little bit more about the series. We've basically been covering the history of highlife music over the last century, and we've been touching on different generations and looking at how politics, social changes, different types of musical influences, and people have been shaping the sound. My name is Abena Serwaa, and I'm the founder of AKADi magazine, which is a cultural publication which connects Ghanaians in the motherland and the diaspora. And I'm joined today by Johnson-Tackie, who is a vinyl record collector. He's also a DJ, a cultural archivist, and activist as well.
Yes. Anyway, it's good to be back. Yes, it's really good to be back.
Good to see you.
Yep.
So tell us a bit more about what you'll be sharing with us today.
So yes, I think it's been quite a long journey. We started this thing with from episode 1, where we spoke about traditional music, and now fast forward, I don't know how many weeks, we're going to be covering Borga Highlife. So we'll be looking at the period between roughly 1980 to 1992, 93, more like mid-90s. We'll be looking at post-revolutionary musical period as well. To make it easier for everyone, I've actually decided to split it into 7 manageable segments, so everybody gets a better view of what actually happened. So first of all, we'll be looking at the day the party came to an end. So we had 2 coups in Ghana, 79 and 81. We're going to look at what impact this had on the music scene in general. We will look at highlife music outside Ghana. Thirdly, we will be looking at technology within highlife music and the rise of Borga Highlife as it happened, if I should say. We will also be looking at the slight contention between George Darko and Pat Thomas as to who released the first Borga Highlife album. We'll also be examining some of the structures, so some of the industry structures that supported these musicians during that era. And then finally, we'll be looking at the rise of hip hop and the explosion of hip life in Ghana.
So quite a lot to get through today.
Not quite a lot. I think it'll be the same time, but I've got fantastic music, so I think it'll make the journey more pleasant for everybody.
So what do you have for us to start us off?
So to kick us off, I have got what I call the creme de la creme of Borga Highlife music. So this is it. This is Nana Champong and his Highlife rappers. I mean, what a very sort of odd name to have for a highlife band, Highlife rappers.
Why?
But it's got no rap.
Okay,
but
well, I'm sure we'll find that
exactly,
out when we listen.
but I mean, Nana Champong was one of the luminaries of Borga Highlife. So I'm going to cue this one sec. If you could please tell them how much we love them.
So while Bernard is preparing the track, I want to encourage people who are watching, if it's your first time or if it's not, if you've got any comments, any questions that you'd like to share with us, please do so in the comment section and we'll make sure that we respond to you. If you want to follow us, we're on Instagram and Twitter, just at HMDSeries. And if you feel like live tweeting as well, just put #HMDSeries and tell us what you think.
Yeah, great.
Are you ready?
Yes. So this particular track is called like "Show Me Your Love."
Yeah.
Which in Tree means
Exactly.
See,
he's just trying to embarrass me.
That's fantastic. So this means show me your love. So basically, yes, show me your love. Nana Champong and the Highlife rappers.
I know you
Welcome back, people. If you've just joined us, we were listening to Nane Champong, Mr. Loverboy, I think he's also known as. And if you heard the ending part of that, he was doing a little bit of rapping, which was cool. Yeah. No, it was cool. I mean, this song reminds me of when I was younger, going to Ghana parties in Birmingham and listening to this kind of like rhythm. You can hear the synth, I think it is,
it's synth heavy.
Yeah.
That's what I call it. It's synth heavy.
Yeah.
So this is a typical sort of heavily produced Borga Highlife record, and this is Nane Champong. Actually, this is quite pricey. Actually.
Really?
Yeah, it is quite pricey.
Okay. Well,
cool.
Another one for my my checkbook. So yeah, I mean, it's actually good to listen to that, but I think it would be good for us to get an idea of what it was like in Ghana if we go back to the first coup and then the second one, and you can kind of paint the political scene for us.
Yes. So I have dubbed it the day the party came to an end because since 1968, 69, I mean, Ghana had built such a resilient musical ecosystem to support musicians. I mean, that was probably maybe the only time in Ghanaian music history where we were doing everything in-house. Fast forward 1979, there was a coup that got rid of the Champong government, and by a young Jerry John Rawlings.
The late Jerry John Rawlings.
Beg your pardon. And he and the rest of his military colleagues set up the AFRC. They were in power for, I think, 8-9 months, I think, yeah. And then they handed over to a civilian government, and things were sort of back to normal, but that didn't last for long.
No.
Come 31st December 1981, there was another coup again, led by the same late Jerry John Rawlings, and that was the final nail in the coffin of that ecosystem that had been developed.
So you say the nail in the coffin. Why was that? What was happening?
Well, so once the coups took place, curfews were implemented. So that meant dusk to dawn, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So 6 to 6, and you were not allowed. Basically, you were not allowed to go out.
Yeah.
And that totally decimated nightlife.
Yeah.
In its entirety, because I mean, you've got musicians, and music is normally played in the evenings, or music is normally played at night. But now, if there are instructions or there are laws in place to say, no, you can't play music, not that you can't play music, but you're not allowed to actually go out after 6 p.m., can you imagine the domino effect? And it totally ruined everything. So that was the day the party came to an end.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
What were the other things that impacted?
Well, so if we're going to take a look at the whole scenario in its entirety, first of all, come 79-80, the main media for consumption of music had changed. You know, people were still buying vinyl. People were still listening to music on vinyl. Actually, vinyl was still being produced, but cassettes had now become the main medium because, one, they were portable.
Yeah.
You could put it in your pocket, you know. Unlike a record, even if you had a 7-inch, you can't put a 7-inch.
You've got to have a special handbag to hold it so it doesn't break.
So cassettes were portable. Cassettes could hold more capacity. So instead of having maybe 20-25 minutes on an LP, you can have 90 minutes. You remember those C90 cassettes?
Yeah.
Yes. So and cassettes are easier to duplicate. So there was this era of rife piracy because the cassettes were being duplicated like on an industrial scale, en masse, you know. So that in the first place, it stopped the musicians from first of all getting their royalties. You know, they couldn't get paid because they were being robbed left, right, and center.
Yeah.
You know, The second point as well was the issue of import taxes. You know, the government had skyrocketed the rates that you had to pay to a tune of probably 250%.
Okay.
You know,
So that would mean, say, if you wanted to bring in a guitar or something, you'd be paying through your nose.
Well, obviously. So if you went to the shop and bought a guitar you went to, say, a shop in Tottenham Court Road, you bought a guitar for 75 quid. By the time the guitar gets to Accra, you'd end up paying about 400, 450. I mean, that was absolutely ridiculous. So that was also another factor that totally killed the music scene, you know, because it was importing music instruments was not cost effective at all.
So if you've painted this scene, what then happened to the musicians then?
Well, I mean, the musicians, they eventually had to leave. But one last point as well that sort of was the final nail was the rise of the spinners. You know, we call them spinners, but in real terms, they're basically a sound system. So a guy would turn up with that guy would be the DJ.
Yeah.
You know, it's the sound system sort of culture. So he'd turn up in the track, huge 10,000 watt system, set up 2 turntables, probably cassettes, and that is it. He is the king of the moment, you know, because the bands couldn't play anymore. I mean, we're talking post-revolution now.
So
post-revolution.
What kind of period? Like what year?
Well, you're looking at probably from 1983.
Okay.
Because that was when the curfew got lifted.
Yeah.
You know, so the entry of these sound systems were also part of the issue that killed live music. You know, because they were cheaper.
Okay.
They were much cheaper.
So just going back to what happened to the musicians as a result.
Yep. So what happened was, some of them decided to play for churches. You know, because the church was the only institution where you could, I wouldn't say play music, but you could play music and get paid.
Okay.
You know, to some extent, get paid. So most of these musicians got absorbed into these churches and they started playing church music. Saying that as well, in Ghana, the church has got a history of actually training young musicians, and even some of these musicians that we're going to talk about in the 5th generation actually went through the church as part of their training. So these musicians, some of them started playing in the churches, but they had problems there as well.
So tell us why. I'm guessing I know why. But
First of all, was financial, because if you're playing for a church, it's not like you're playing Friday. No, it's not like you're playing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Which a musician would have been
That
playing.
would be the normal routine of a musician, but you're playing only on Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, probably like half a day.
Yeah.
I mean, so it was financially unviable to carry on, and in a day's sort of wage, it just wasn't viable. Secondly, it was artistically unviable as well, because you're playing secular music. Sorry, you're playing gospel music, you know, and this is a musician who's used to playing in clubs and playing non-secular music. I think artistically, it would stunt your growth.
Yeah.
You know, so looking at these factors, the church was not viable as well. The church was not viable, so they all had to leave.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I believe that you've said in the past about Smarting Cancer, talking about sort of the role of musicians, and when you're in a place where you have a lot, you're able to, you know, they're able to benefit from that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a good point as well. This as a chat I was having with Smarting Cancer, actually, who is the leader of the Sunsu Mystic Band. He told me, like, look, we musicians, we rely on the surplus of our followers, because assuming you've been paid, and obviously you have to pay your bills, you have to pay your water bill, electricity bill, you have to pay your rent. Whatever's left is what you take to a party, you know? So at the same time as well, the government had this sort of economic recovery program, which was in real terms like Tory austerity.
Yeah.
You know, everybody tighten your belt.
Yeah.
So that meant that there was less money to go around.
Okay.
You know, you had no surplus left to go to go and see a proper band or to go to a proper dance. You know, you could go and see a sound system, but the feeling was just not the same, and that was in itself killing sort of the live music scene as well. So it was quite dire for them.
I mean, it sounds pretty grim, but was there any sort of light at the end of the tunnel with that? You talked about the sound systems.
With the sound systems as well, I think what happened was these sound systems went on to launch the careers of certain very sort of reputable media people who became big in the 90s. Like a typical example is like DJ Azikiza. You know, he cut his teeth playing for sound systems like Moondogs and Willie Chi and what's that? Skyhawks.
Yeah.
You know, these were the major sound systems that we had in Accra. And these sound systems, in a way, although they were detrimental to live music, they helped launch the careers of certain media personalities as well.
Okay. Yeah. So generally difficult times, but some glimmers of hope.
Yes, yes. There's always a glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I feel like at this point, have you got something else up your sleeve?
So at this point in time, again, I'm gonna play another track because, as I said, I'm quite excited about this because it took me quite a while to actually get a selection together. So it's gotten to the point now where ground zero for musicians. I mean, you can't earn any money, you can't play, so they had to actually leave. But before I touch on that, I've got this, Mr. John.
What
K.
have you got?
I've got this. Okay, so this is Mr. John K. Yeah. Okay, so John K was actually a producer. He was more of a producer than sort of a singer musician, you know.
Okay.
And he was in London. So this is a UK. This is unlike Nene Champon, which was a German release.
Yeah.
This is a UK release.
Yeah.
Yep. So
I really like what he's got on. He looks pretty funky. I mean, the dressing style during that time was out of this world.
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, you can certainly pass comments on the dress sense because, wow. I mean, I'm gonna cue the.
Yeah, you cue the music. But you know, for those of you who were born and raised outside of Ghana, if you were in Europe, I'm thinking of my own experience of being in Birmingham and the kinds of clothes that my dad used to wear. That, you know, you've got the 80s style with the shoulder pads, rolled up sleeves, jerry curl hair, that kind of thing. So that was all the rage at that point. And that's what I grew up listening to. Okay,
great. So music is cued. So this is John K.
Okay, brilliant.
Well, John K, as I said, he's based in the UK. But one thing as well with Borga Highlife Music, most, I'd say, in terms of all the dialects that we have in Ghana, 80%, 90% of it is a can, you know, which is, it's quite interesting in a way because I'm thinking, so can I actually play a Borga Highlife song or sort of a song that was made in the 80s that sort of reflected another dialect as well, apart from a can. So I've picked this one from John K and is actually in Ga.
Where you're from.
Exactamundo. So this is called Mokonshioma, which means that, well, I was here before you came. Mokonshioma Danuba literally means I was here before you came.
Okay.
So I mean, you can.
So back off.
I was here before you came. So yes, this is John K with Mokonshioma.
John Kay. It's a really familiar song for me, a Ga song. I've just found out what it means from Bernard. Are you going to share it with? I'm not going to embarrass myself by speaking Ga, but tell us what it means.
So this is John Kay, and this song literally means I was I was here before you came. So yes, watch your mouth or something like that.
Okay. I mean, it's so familiar. I'm sure many of us those watching can remember this song when they went to parties.
Yeah.
What I can really hear on this is it's really sort of techno-y. That's how I would like there's parts, which I mean now when you break it down you can really hear it.
Yeah. I would say this was heavily influenced by that repetitive 4/4 to the floor sort of house style of production, which was heavily influenced Highlife as well on Highlife's amazing journey.
Okay.
Yes.
No, you can really hear it. A good track.
Yep.
Classic.
John Kay, yes.
So you left us at this point where it's quite difficult in Ghana politically, financially, and we know that some of the musicians were absorbed into the church, but that didn't last.
Yep.
And we know that many left. That one we know.
Yep.
Where did they go?
Well, so those that thought, well, I've had it. I need to find greener pastures. So most of them ended up in, say, the US, Canada, in Europe, Germany, and the Netherlands, Holland. Most of them ended up there as well. And in Africa, majority of them went to Nigeria.
Why Nigeria?
Well, I think when you look at West Africa in its entirety, you realize that Ghana and Nigeria, we've got a lot of things in common, you know, jollof rice being like one of them.
Yeah.
But I think the musicians back then went to Nigeria because, first of all, Nigeria was an Anglophone country. Most of the countries along West Africa are Francophone. So that language barrier did not exist to begin with. Secondly, there had already been an established community of Ghanaian musicians from as far back as probably 75.
Yeah.
You know, because you had someone like Okuku Seku, who before 1981, the coup had, or from between, say, 76 to 81, he'd released about 10 albums.
Wow.
On Nigerian labels.
Okay.
You know, like reputable ones like RAS, same one that you had Prince Nico Mbaga, the Sweet Mother. The Sweet Mother guy. So that was also one element, that strong community of Ghanaian musicians. And then thirdly, I think both music industries had a relationship.
Yeah.
You know, if we go back to what we covered during the big band era, that is with the second generation of musicians, we realized that when the Broadway dance band broke up in 57 and reformed, and they were reformed as the Uhurus.
Yeah.
You know, we had Sami Obot, who was the leader after Sam Plange left. And Sami Obot was Nigerian.
Yeah.
You know, so if back in 1957 you had a prominent Nigerian musician leading a very prominent Ghanaian dance band, I mean, that tells you that trust and that connect is still there. So that was also one major factor that made most musicians go to Nigeria.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep, it perfectly does.
And then you talked about those that went to the West, so they went to maybe specifically Germany, if we want to talk about.
Yes, they went to Germany because back in the 80s, the German government had a very generous asylum application scheme, so it was quite easy for you to get political asylum in Germany. And it was sort of legitimate because there had been a coup and it was quite unsettled. So you had a lot of these musicians make their way to Germany, you know, and they mainly settled in Düsseldorf, Berlin, and Hamburg. So you had this buzzing Ghanaian community in Germany. You had Ghanaian communities in Holland.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. You had a big Ghanaian community in the Netherlands, like in Amsterdam and Rotterdam.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as vibrant and as colorful as what you had in Germany.
Yeah.
You see, so that was one reason why, or probably maybe the primary reason why they went to Germany. But saying that as well, those musicians were not the first sort of batch of musicians to go to Germany.
Okay.
In 1977, you had a reggae band called Root Sanabo.
Okay.
I think my friend Akol Alabi actually played in that band in 77. I mean, he went to Berlin with them. So the Germans had already had a taster of what Ghanaian music was like, although it was presented to them in reggae format.
Yeah.
They had a feel of what it was, what the Ghanaian music sort of felt like and sounded like already.
So you've talked about the music that, or the musicians that came over, but what was the music scene like at that point in the world?
Well, I mean, if you look at sort of music dynamics, I should call it that way, from episode 1, you can tell there's always a parallel shift between what was happening globally and what was happening to Highlife. You know, so 1979-80, what was in vogue? I mean, what comes to mind?
Disco, boogie. We've heard some house, techno, those kinds of sounds. That's what I'm thinking.
Yes, that exactly. It was disco, boogie, house, techno. That was what was in vogue at that time. You know, if you went to the States, that was black music.
Yeah.
You know,
all of them.
That was what was in vogue. So, what happened was, with that in mind, the musicians also, they didn't decide, I wouldn't say copy, but they became influenced by these sounds.
Yeah.
You know, they began to incorporate some of these rhythm structures. So, for instance, if you look at the rhythm structure of disco music, it's basically 4 to the floor.
So for normal people, can you explain what that means?
It's basically 4 to the floor. So it's where the bass drum hits on every beat.
Okay. And how does that compare to Highlife?
Highlife, I'd say the rhythm structure of Highlife is more syncopated.
Okay.
You know, it's not on every beat.
Okay.
You know, it depends on who's even playing the drum.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's why Highlife style of drumming is so related to jazz.
Okay. That makes sense, which you talked about in previous...
In, I think, episode 2.
Yeah.
So these Highlife musicians took that rhythm structure, you know, married it with technology, you know, with mainly singing in a can and a can melodies, you know. So that sort of led to the creation of a new sound,
which we call Borga.
Which we call Borga Highlife.
Okay.
Which we call Borga Highlife. So in essence as well, I'd say technology in itself played an important role in the making of Borga Highlife music.
Yeah.
You know, because now you had the chance to record. You had digital recording equipment.
Yeah.
You know, you could record digitally. You could play instruments that you could mimic instruments like horn lines.
Yeah.
That is why most of the Borga Highlife sounds have these really synthy horn lines.
Yeah. And I guess it makes sense, because if you're a musician and you've come over, you've sought political asylum and you've come over, you've not necessarily come over with your whole band.
No.
So
yeah, so that was one advantage of technology.
Yeah.
In the shaping of Borga Highlife, because if you don't have your whole band, if probably you're from Kumasi and you're used to playing with a 12-piece band.
Yeah.
And now you don't have that band. Technology gave you the chance to improvise.
Absolutely.
Not improvise, but sort of adapt. Let me put it that way. Adapt and improvise. You have to adapt first, and then you improvise. So that is what technology provided for those musicians.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can really hear it with the synths, the sequences, all of that kind of thing.
Yep. I mean, the production process is like, I would call it, I don't know, but shiny music, you know. I was having a chat with my friend on Facebook the other time. It's like shiny music, you know. The production is more crisp.
Yeah.
You know, the sound is crisper. The sonics are fuller, but probably not as warm. But you get really full sonics, but still not as warm. So, yes, one of the hallmarks of that sort of production.
So the quality of the sound,
definitely.
Yeah.
That is what encapsulates that Borga Highlife sound. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that name, I think you need to give us some background as to Borga, because I mean, when I think of Borga, you know, they say, we are Borga, you've come from abroad, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But what are the roots of the name?
Well, I mean, the roots of Borga. So it begins, it's obviously got German connections.
Yeah.
So if someone refers to you as a burger or a Borga of a place, that means that you're an inhabitant, or that's where you come from.
Yeah,
citizen. You know, a citizen of a particular place. That is the name.
Yeah, Hamburger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is the name. So this name Borga came about because you had some of these people that traveled in the early 80s now coming back
to Ghana.
And they came with a brand new style.
we've seen a bit of that style.
They came with a totally brand new style. You know, the way they dressed, the way the cars they drove, the places they went to. It was totally off the chain. I mean, I just learned this last week, actually.
And the hair.
Well, I mean, you can start with the outfits first. I mean, the jerry curls, you know, like
the soul glow.
It sort of glistens in the sun.
Yeah. you know what comes to mind? Charles Amwa. There's an album cover where he just looks like he's dripping in sweat, and he's got jerry curl as well.
Yes, jerry curls. I mean, the high-waisted trousers, you know, 4 pleats each way, green patent shoes. I mean, you had to look the part. The jewels, the viscose shirt, and you needed to drive like a fat BMW, like a 7 Series BMW or a 7. It always had to be a German car.
Yeah, you know? Of course.
It always had to be a German car, and it had to be like huge.
I wonder if this is stoking up any memories for people watching at the moment. If so, send us your pictures.
Yeah. So, I mean, when these people came, as we've spoken about, the appearance and the places they went to, people started saying, this guy is a Borga.
Yeah.
Because he's just come from Germany.
Yeah.
Or he's just come from Holland or something. He's a Borga. So the word Borga became associated with all things ostentatious.
Yeah, I see that. And actually it reminds me of the coinage of the word Highlife, which we talked about in episodes 2 and also a little bit in 3.
Yeah.
So this idea of maybe an aspirational lifestyle. So high life because of the suit and tails.
Yes, of course. You had
the
to
top
be, you
hat,
had to be
the
dressed
gloves.
up for the.
Yeah, only certain people were able to go into those places of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And similarly, although maybe not the same completely, with Borga, it's this idea of, you know, those are the cool people with their trousers up to their nipples and jerry curl hair and stuff like that. So, I mean, like, do you see that similarity?
Well, I think that similarity is there. First of all, that theme of sort of aspirational. I mean, it's an aspirational thing. Everybody wants to look good.
Yeah.
You know, it's a Ghanaian thing. Everybody wants to look good. But yes, there is a similarity because this is the normal man looking up to this person that has come from Germany. In the same way those musicians in the 50s and in the 40s and the 50s, I mean, ordinary people looked up to them because they wore the best suits and everything. So there is definitely a comparison. But the only difference that I would like to mention here is that subject of elitism. You know, there was no elitism in Borga Highlife. You know, it was free for all. You know, everybody could enjoy the music and everybody could sort of enjoy being a Borga for the day if you can afford to get yourself a pair of high-waisted trousers. So yeah, that was, I'm sure that was a good time to be young and be alive.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, so I've got this image in my head of, Mr. Borga, who's come from Hamburg to come and chill and in Ghana. And I know that there was a lot of music at that time, but I'd love to find out from you. I want you to put this to rest. Who was the first, out of the musicians that we know? We have this contention between Pat Thomas and George Darko. Yeah. Who brought out the first Borga Highlife album?
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, who released the first Borga Highlife album? So, I wouldn't say contention. That's a bit sort of very, what should we use? Little misunderstanding? Disagreement? Well, yeah, either way. Contention. Uncertainty, okay. Yes. I think there's always been that uncertainty, but I mean, who released the first Borga Highlife album? So, in 1980, Pat Thomas with some of the members of Mari Jata. So you had people like Nat Usmanu, AKADi as well, AKADi, and then Bob Fishin. They went over to Berlin and recorded, and Bob Fishin and George Darko. George Darko, so they went over to Berlin to record Pat Thomas's 1980 album in 1980. And on that particular album, there's a track called Yesu Sanbra. George Darko actually played guitar on that track. So that is it. And then in 1983, George Darko releases an album, Friends. Title of the album was called Friends. And on that particular album was a track called AKADi Brofo.
Oh, I know it well.
Yes, and I think everybody knows AKADi Brofo. But there's this always sort of, okay, but who released it first and what happened? And okay, to begin with, let's look at the release periods. Pat Thomas was released in 1980, just after the 79 coup. Yeah. In 81, there was a coup. So he was sandwiched in between two coups. Yeah. I mean, as a music exec, this must have been a nightmare. Because who would want to release a record around that time?
I guess he didn't know.
Well, I mean, he released a record in 81. In 1980. 81, another coup, then a curfew for 2 years.
Yeah, not good.
So basically, the music probably never got any airplay because this was a time of revolution. I mean, there was no time to party.
Well, you've explained.
Yep. Yeah. Probably people didn't have money to buy records because economic recovery program like what you call austerity. Yeah. So that was probably, in my opinion, maybe the worst time to release an album. George Darko released his in 1983. Yeah. Just after the curfew.
When things are starting
when things, I mean, at least now there was nightlife. You had spinners, there was nightlife. But he released his in 1983 and, I mean, things had picked up a bit. No more curfew. At least you could party all through the night. So it was a hit. It was an instant hit.
Okay.
It was massive commercial success just because it was released at the right time. But that certainly wasn't the first sort of Borga Highlife album. I'd say 1980 was the first one.
Yeah. Well, we can understand why there was this confusion. Maybe that's the word.
Yeah. I mean, to begin with, George Darko was even involved in the release of 1980. So.
Yeah. So he did do the first one as well because he was on it.
Well, you can say it that way.
Yeah.
You can say you can say it that way. He was part of the team.
Yeah.
But that album was released by Pat Thomas.
Yeah. Okay. So we all know now.
Yep. And to add to that as well, AKADi Brofo in itself was not actually sung by George Darko. AKADi Brofo was sung by Lee Dodu.
Lee Dodu, getting more complicated.
Lee Dodu is a proper. We spoke about him when we did episode 2. He was playing for the Please Dance Band. Yeah. Lee Dodu sang AKADi Brofo. He did not write it. Apparently, there was the guy who wrote it was called Nkansa. Yeah. But he couldn't sing. He couldn't actually.
Be careful of your words.
He couldn't deliver. Sorry. Apparently, he couldn't deliver, so they said, Lido, did you want to give it a go? He did, and it was like, yeah, we like you.
Wow.
So you can sing on it. So that is it as well. It's a George Darko album,
With
but
Lido
Lido do sang it.
Okay, so we hear it. Well, not first. I'm sure many of you know this already, but
Yeah.
you know, Bernard has laid it to rest.
Yes, we
Okay.
have. So I think we are going to play
Yeah.
music.
Yes.
I
Give us.
love music.
Yes, you do. Give us something juicy.
Yes.
But you know, I feel like we need to just say a few words about George Darko after all of what you've said.
Well,
And
please.
I was doing a bit of hunting and stuff, and many of you will know this already, but some facts about him. He was born in 1951 in Akropong, and I believe that he was part of the military. So he was a musician in a military band. Please, correct me if I'm wrong. And
Yep.
he came back because I think he was in Europe at that time,
Yep.
but he came back and he set up his own band called the GoldenStool Band,
Yep.
which sounds very familiar to your initiative, although you're not a band,
No, I'm
but
not
the
a band.
Goldenstool Project.
Yeah.
So yeah, he had his own band.
Yeah, and he's a chief in a Kropong now.
Yes,
Like,
he is.
He's up in the mountains. He's a big chief.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't just walk in and see him. You need to come with some schnapps and.
And have
sort of-
you? Have you?
No, I've not been to see him since he became a chief. But
I
yeah.
think it's time for you to
Right.
visit
So
him again.
what we're gonna play next? Hold on. God, once again, it gets all messy.
Can I hold it for you
Yes.
while you're queuing?
Right. So I'm gonna just say. So we're playing CST Amankwa next.
Can you
Yep.
see? So just for you, if it's not clear, so CST Amankwa with Kwame Fosu as well. You can't see the back,
Let's have a. Oh no, you can't see the back.
but he's got a really nice hat on.
Yeah, he has. Okay, so I'm gonna try and cue this and Kirst. So if you could tell them to please like us on.
Yeah, so
Facebook and
so
all that.
as I said at the beginning, first of all, if you've just joined us, welcome. This is HMDSeries, and we're in 5 parts. This is part 4, and we're talking about Borga Highlife. So if you would like to share your thoughts, please let us know. There's the comment section. So if you're on Facebook or YouTube watching us, you can do either on there. Also, you can follow us at HMDSeries, all one word, on Instagram and also on Twitter. And if you felt like live tweeting or just saying anything, you can just put a hashtag in front of that and tell us what you think of the show so far.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna play CST Amankwa. I think Kirst showed
Yeah.
it already. So CST Amankwa. So this album is actually proper 80s. This is from 1988.
Okay,
The
the tail end.
Yeah, this is the tail end, but that was when I'd say it had sort of peaked.
Okay,
So this is a typical 4 to the floor sort of. It's got that sort of disco beat at the beginning, and it's called Yewo Eyim.
okay.
I know it sounds quite morbid, but
It does.
but that is it. I mean, most of the themes that you have in Borga Highlife never changed. They got carried forward. So the themes of love, death, and the themes of love and death prevails all through. So
Well, it's
I
part
think-
of life, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
it is,
we
it is.
can't get enough of that.
yeah. So this is CST Amankwa with Yewo Eyim.
Bobi. Usua Chabi Pontu, Yenny Nana Bankurono, or Dia one sorry, but who can encourage you? But Gucci ready up once, a brandy wife a baby. On Penna was him, and so who are broken mamma. A fear for my batampa, or would you untie son? As your baton wear, and so a wagon and ma. Barbara say, Bonsu, thank God, my uncle. As you were 70, 72 and near me, on them. Barbara, I am one Fedria, no baby neighbor. So I wish you a bend. For anyway, what do you know? And so now,
back, and you were just listening to CST Amankwa with a very, well, morbid lyrics, but a really uplifting song. I can really hear the disco elements in there.
Yeah, this is a dance floor killer actually.
Oh, okay.
This works every time for me. This works. So CST Amankwa Yawayim, as Abena Sarah said, quite morbid lyrics, but I mean this on the dance floor is like a nuclear weapon. It totally
Yeah.
it totally does the job. So yes, that is amazing album again. And Patrick, could you kindly please show the album again, because this is a really, really, personally I think to me this is a really, really special album. Yeah.
Just for the benefit of those who don't speak or understand Chi, can you tell us what the title means?
Yawayim means that I think we're in mourning.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I do understand a little bit of Chi, you know.
I never said you didn't.
I do. Okay, yeah, great. So CST Amankwa Yawayim.
Yeah. So you've talked to us about, we've talked about the contention, we've talked about the sort of type of music and how that influenced Highlife, Borga Highlife. Can you give us an idea of maybe notable musicians that you would say were big in that period?
Yeah, I think it's quite amazing, because if you look at the roster of who's who in Borga Highlife, I mean, most of them certainly did not spring out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
You know, most of them were really, really seasoned musicians who had cut their teeth probably in the 60s and 70s. You know, first one, for instance, is Serwaa.
Yeah.
You know, producer, multi-instrumentalist, amazing kit drummer. Did I say dancer?
I think you did.
Oh, I have to say that again.
Yeah.
An amazing dancer and sort of producer, recording engineer, all-rounder. You know, he was based mainly in Germany, but definitely an all-rounder.
I wish you had the album cover. That's all I see. There's this image of him with his jerry curls, and he's just got this really sweaty torso, top half. You know, like typical of the kinds of musicians. I'm thinking, not Kool and the Gang, but you know that kind of time.
Yes.
Michael Jackson, all of that kind of look.
Yeah, it was 80s, so that was it. Another important person as well, may his soul rest in peace, is Nana Tufo.
Yeah.
You know, Nana Tufo cut his teeth playing for Dr. KJC. He played for many bands in what do you call it? He played for many bands in the 70s, especially in the Kumasi area, and he came out with his own style of Sichi Highlife.
Which Dr. K. Jesse is known for.
Dr. KJC invented it. He was a protege of Dr. KJC, and he came out with this amazing style of Sichi Highlife.
What do you call it?
I call it bogafied Sichi Highlife, you know, and sort of on all his albums, or should I say on probably maybe 4 or 5 of his albums that he cut to vinyl, all of them had like a 12-minute Sichi Highlife sort of cut, and they're always amazing. Very, very high quality, shiny, digitally produced, but always amazing. Always amazing.
Okay.
Another person as well was Alan Cosmos. He also ended up in Germany. He he was also another old timer with the Aboso Glass Factory band called El Dorados.
Oh, wow.
And I think A.B. Krenzel also played in the El Dorados, actually, with Alan Cosmos. You have Lee Dodu, who
sang Echo Tibro.
yes, he sang in George Darko's band. He also did not spring out of the woodwork. Police dance band in the 60s, you know. After that, he went on and sang for Yamoa. You know, so there's like a chunk of history behind all these musicians.
Yeah.
And then later on, he went to form and lead Cantata. That was also another amazing band in the 80s. In the 80s, if you went to a Ghana party and they didn't play a Cantata record, then it was probably maybe someone trying to fake it. But yeah, Cantata was huge, like huge as well. You've got the Lumba brothers. So the Lumba brothers are made up of
Nane Champong,
exactly.
who you played.
I played Nane Champong earlier, and
Charles Fosu.
Charles Fosu, yeah.
DL.
What?
DL, Daddy Lumba.
Ah, DL. So yeah, DL. Did you know it was called DL?
I mean, he changed his name a while back.
All right.
To DL.
Oh God, I'm so much out.
Oh my God.
I'm so much out of the loop.
That's my man.
Okay.
Apart from Pat Thomas.
So DL, yes, Daddy Lumba. So Daddy Lumba as well. I mean, a slew of albums, uncountable. He
Yeah.
was also another one.
And he was in Hamburg, was he? Where did he live?
Dusseldorf,
Oh,
because he worked
Dusseldorf.
with Bodo, and Bodo was
Okay.
based in Dusseldorf. So I don't know whether I'm sure he was based in Dusseldorf
Okay.
as well. You've got people like Adomako Nyamiche. You've got Rex Jemfi.
Yeah.
You've got Amachi Dede. Amachi Dede is actually, to me, he's a bit of a chameleon.
Why is that?
You know, because he's got one foot in like guitar band, high life music, and the other foot in sort of heavy electronic Borga high life sounds. I mean, he's quite enigmatic, and that's why he's still popular today, because he's got that skill to please the people that want the sort of more boggerish, fall to the floor sort of sound, and the people that want the more syncopated high life sound. He's able to cater both, so that made him it's made him more in demand now. Actually, everybody wants to book him for Ghana parties. Fortunately, yeah. You've got people like John Kay.
Okay.
I just played John Kay as well.
Yeah.
John Kay was based here in the UK. We've got Thomas Frimpong, another big one as well. Thomas Frimpong was also based here in the UK at some point. He was signed to Jerry Frimpong's dad's label. Sorry, I thought you knew Jerry Frimpong. Asona.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna talk about Asona later, but like really significant UK label that released Ghanaian high life music in the 80s.
Oh, sorry, I didn't want to cut your flow.
No, I mean there's so much of these musicians. I mean, I could just go on, keep mentioning.
I mean, I'm also thinking of like Papa Yankson.
Yeah, so these are the Borga high life guys, but at the same time as well, back in Ghana, after the curfew was lifted, I mean, some people, with the help of some very wealthy benefactors, tried to sort of form bands and start playing again. So I think just after the curfew, 84, 85, you had big bands like the Marriott International with Amar Pino and Akwabo's dad. Not the granddad.
Yeah.
His dad was the keyboard player for Marriott as well. And you had Western Diamonds with Papa Yankson, because that was sort of the last big band that he played with, because Papa Yankson has been around since
back in the day,
since the late 50s, 60s, before independence. So he's also been through the ranks to get to the top, you know. So these two bands kept things going. Obviously you had what's her name, your favorite girl singing for the Western Diamonds, Ikuya Dankwa. So you had Ikuya Dankwa as well singing for the Western Diamonds together with Papa Yankson, and they were a brilliant, if you went to see them live, they were just a brilliant sort of couple together for singing.
So I guess what you're saying is, although Borga High Life was king at that time, there were musicians and there were bands that were playing other types of high life music. And I think you mentioned this when we talked about episode 3 as well, although funk and those types of sounds were big and they were hitting the scene. That didn't stop people from playing guitar band music.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. It didn't stop people playing from guitar band music. People still played guitar band music. But the only thing that slightly changed was that the guitar band music became electronic as well. It became digital.
Yeah.
Because instead of having proper drum kit, they think, oh yeah, we could use a Simmons drum, or we could get an electronic Roland drum kit just to add a bit more spice to it. We could do the whole drumming on the whole sort of drum sequence on a drum machine. We'll get somebody to play the guitar. We will play the bass line on a keyboard. Yeah. So it got very sort of technical as well, but it was still tight, and it was still sort of, you listen to it, you think, okay, yeah, this is not Borga, but this is like digital high. I call it digital high life.
See, he keeps doing this. Another Bernardism. Digital high life.
Digital high life. Yeah, that's what I call it.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's what it's called.
Digital high life.
Well, you did mention, we mentioned Western Diamonds, and you did mention one of the notable women, during the Borga High Life scene. Can you tell us a few more? I feel like we may know these names as well.
Yep. So I think so far as the women are concerned, come the 80s, their role as singers, musicians, had sort of shifted a bit. They had now taken, you had to be an entertainer. You just can't stand there and sing. It's boring. We want to see you entertain us. So you in the 80s, there were these female musicians who were both singers and entertainers,
Now, I know that when we've spoken off camera before, you mentioned about the Janet Jackson of Ghana. So who was this?
Well, just to catch up from what you said, I mean, as I said, their roles have changed, entertainers. So you had female musicians like Akuya Dankwa, obviously, for the Western Diamonds. You had Asabia Cropper. You had Becky Baini. You had the Tego sisters sprang up in the 80s.
Oh, the Tego sisters,
the Tego sisters sprang up in the 80s. You had Lady Talata as well. You had what's her name, Nana Love, who was actually married to a producer. I think the name was Randolph or something.
Randolph.
And although she was based in Nigeria, and she started her curiosity playing funk, like singing, actually releasing funk records. But come the 80s, she was dropping some heavy disco sounds, which was produced in Nigeria. But basically, she was singing in Chi. You had Emilia Brobe as well. I mean, a whole lot. But the one that, as I said, is Akwesua Jepong. She was hot in the 80s. She was like the Ghana Michael Jackson.
Or I thought Janet Jackson.
So, beg your pardon, Ghana Janet Jackson. Okay. Oh God, I'm getting the sexist mixed up. She was she was she was like the Ghana Janet Jackson. She had the looks. She could do the moves, like the whole lot. So that was what happened with women. Their roles changed. I don't think it was for the bad, but I think artistically it was good because it meant that people could express themselves more, especially women could express themselves more. That is it.
Okay. And then moving on to the industry, because I feel like we've not really touched on that.
Yes, I mean, we haven't touched on the industry structures, but believe you me, there was an amazing ecosystem supporting these 80s musicians. As I said, it wasn't as tight as it was in the 70s, because that was definitely the golden age. But you had this very sustainable ecosystem that gave these musicians the support that they needed to sort of work, if I should put it that way. So from promoters to labels to producers, distributors, talent scouts, you name it. They had their own thing going. It was more of a hybrid system.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because when we think about our first episode, it was heavily sort of focused on Britain, actually. This is where you came to cut the records. But then as we shifted closer to the golden age, you saw Ghanaians take full ownership of the whole structure from sort of start to finish. So I'm thinking we've got this situation politically where people have had to leave the country. You don't have your whole band with you. What was the scene like then? Was it more of a hybrid, you mentioned?
Yeah, exactly. It was a hybrid scene. So let's say you had producers in Ghana and you had producers in Germany, all working to produce the same sort of sound. The same electronic, four to the floor, sort of techno-ish sound. So in Germany, you had most important, his name is Bodo Steiger. I mean, you cannot talk about Borga High Life and not talk of Bodo Steiger. Bodo Steiger's contribution has been massive. I think without Bodo Steiger, Borga High Life would not be Borga High Life as we know it today. Fact.
Wow. Bernard.
Yep.
You keep doing this? Okay, so tell us about this, Bodo Steiger's.
So you had Bodo Steiger, who is based in Düsseldorf. His other working contemporary and close colleague, Peter Crick. So these two producers were based in Düsseldorf. and they were churning out hits.
So they worked with everyone, I guess.
Like you name it, they worked with everyone. So Bodo Steiger has worked with Nana PSA, Nana Tufo, A.B. Krenzo, Charles Amoa, Obibini Techi, Charles Fosu, both of the Daddy Lumbas, both of the DLs, Nana Champong, Daddy Lumba, even not too long ago, Oforian Ponsa.
Okay.
You know, Oforian Ponsa was a protege of Daddy Lumba, actually, I remember, because he used to sing for Daddy Lumba.
Yeah.
So that is the extent of Bodo Steiger's influence, whether it be production, recording, and even playing as a musician.
Oh, wow.
So he understood high life. You know, he was one of the few producers who actually understood high life to the extent that you'd have Ghanaian musicians queuing up at his door just to have a session and have a recording. So that was really good. He had Peter Crick as well, who was the same, like his contemporary.
Yeah.
And they both lived in Düsseldorf. And between them, Peter Crick, Bodo Steiger, and Charles Samoa, they formed the Reiklang studio, which was in Düsseldorf. And that was the studio to go to if you were recording Borga Highlife. It had Charles Samoa doing technical work there as well.
Yeah.
So Charles Samoa was not only a musician,
Yeah.
but he had his hand in like the production pie, like probably wrist deep. Because he produced A.B. Krenzel's one and only Borga Highlife album.
What was that called?
The one with, the one with the black and white hands.
Okay.
Like that. Ahim for band.
Okay.
Yes, the one with the, I think, the Ghana flag hands.
Okay.
That was produced by Charles Samoa. I
Samoa.
actually forgot the name of the album, the name of the album itself, but that was produced by Charles Samoa. So once again, hybrid system. You know, you've got Ghanaian technicians working hand in hand with German technicians to get the sound out, you know. And
it wasn't always only in Düsseldorf. You've mentioned Berlin
in Berlin as well. So in Berlin you had Uli Vega, he famous guy. He recorded Pat Thomas's 1980 album, which, I mean, you listen to that album now, the quality, you know, the quality of that production alone says that, wow, I mean, using the best equipment, everything is natural. Yeah. You know, using the best equipment. So these three German producers sort of had it all they held it down for the Ghanaians, and they churned out hit after hit after hit after hit.
But it's important to, as you said, it was a hybrid, so it was a collaboration, it was an equal partnership.
Yeah, it was more of an equal partnership, and I'm sure the Germans learned a lot from us as well in terms of Ghanaian music structures and Ghanaian music arrangements, ideas and stuff like that. Yeah, they did learn a lot.
And I mean, you've talked about what was happening in Europe, specifically Germany, but what about other, well, let's say what's happening back in Ghana?
Well, in Ghana, I mean, there were in Ghana, the Ghana Film Studio was still in existence. Still, people were still recording in in 85, 86. It was still open. People were still recording. It still had the same old guard, Francis Kwache and Jacob Sergio. They were still working. Yeah. So they had been there like since the early 70s. You had Faisal Helwani, who was still running his Elephant Walk studio.
Yeah, you talked about him.
Yep.
Lebanese
guy who was still running his Elephant Walk studio. You had Nakasi Records, led by Big Joe. He was also distributor, record label owner, promoter. Yeah. You know, you had Akubot. Yeah. He was the manager of Nene Champong, and he was a manager and a promoter as well. You know,
many hats.
You had to, because it was that time. And you had Damfo Domino, who was also a really big distributor in Accra. You still had people like DK Nyako, who had survived the wrath of the 70s and were still trading, but it wasn't as much as people like Black M was also another one, or Nakasi, or probably the other labels, you know. But in terms of distribution as well, I mean, in London, for what I know, the distribution network was unique.
Okay.
Because if you wanted to buy a Ghanaian record, I mean, in 1984, you want to buy the latest Daddy Lumba record.
You walk over to HMV and you say, I want 1980, where is it? And you got it.
Well, yes. So you couldn't go to HMV or Tower Records and say, oh, yeah, I want to buy Pat Thomas. No. You know, they had a local distribution system, i.e. the shops where you bought food, where you bought Ghanaian food.
Now, we all know this. You know, when you're buying your, let me think, your pounded fufu in the box, and you look up next to where they have the cream, the cocoa butter, you see the tapes. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. That was how it was. And so you had markets like the Kumasi Market on West Green Road in Seven Sisters.
Yeah.
Saying that as well, Richmond popped in there about a year ago.
You can't just throw names in. Who's
Richmond? Richmond, my friend,
From
Yabafang.
Thank you.
He popped in there, I think, last year, and he bought a couple of records, like old stock.
Oh, wow.
He went back and bought everything else and gave me 2 records.
What did he give you?
I'm not going to tell you. It's a top-notch secret. It's a digger secret.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, the shops that sold food in Dalston, Seven Sisters, Peckham,
yes.
Brixton.
Yes.
Where else?
Not Croydon.
Not Croydon.
Maybe Birmingham.
Well, who knows? Yes, Birmingham, because you were from Birmingham, so yes, big Ghanaian community. So that was part of the distribution network. You know, local shops, so people could easily have access to the music.
Yeah.
You know, you had BB Osai as well, who was also a man of many hats. He was a producer, he was a promoter, he was executive producer sometimes. You had record labels like Pan-African, record labels. I mentioned Nakasi, like Asona Records.
Yeah.
So Asona Records was actually based in the UK, and that is Jerry Frimpong. Jerry Frimpong's dad. He's a DJ as well, and he's a good friend of mine. Jerry Frimpong's dad, his Asona label was like a home for all Ghanaian musicians, or most Ghanaian musicians who found themselves in London. Thomas Frimpong, he released, like, I think maybe 2 of his albums on Asona. Erica Jemine was on Asona as well. Even Kwame Yeboah's dad in the 80s was signed to Asona. So Asona in the UK was he was a really, really sort of, apparently he's passed away now, but he was a very, very important man in society. Over here in London, he was like really, really important. So this hybrid ecosystem, I mean, kept things ticking over.
Yeah.
You know, even when mode of media consumption changed, when it changed from vinyl to CDs to cassettes, as you said, were next to the hair cream, these distributors are still in business today.
Which means you can still buy records or tapes today, and you won't tell me which one you bought.
Well, I think it's like everybody does download now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
but let's not forget what was happening in America, because there would have been labels there as well.
Yeah, I mean, there were international labels now who became interested in African music. I mean, and started not only releasing new stuff but reissuing. You know, which has become the thing today, reissuing music. But in the early 80s, Makosa, another released, and the sister label, African Music Explosion, they were releasing music from all over West Africa. It was based in New York.
So they were Black Americans.
They were black Caribbean, not Americans. They were Black Caribbean, I think. I think they were Black Caribbean, but if I'm wrong, anybody can correct me. But it's definitely Makosa and sister label African Music Explosion. They were releasing music from like all along the coast of Africa, so Nigeria, even Fela had a few records on Makosa, Alex Konedu on Makosa, Bassa Bassa Sounds on Makosa. You remember Bassa Bassa Sounds and Bunzu Sounds?
Yeah.
They were the people that decided, no, we're not doing this. We're not following you lot. We're doing our own thing. You know, so these labels as well became interested in our music in the 80s, and they also supported the music industry. You know, they kept things going. They were sort of main places to go to buy not only Ghanaian music, but African music as well. You know, so that was it for the industry structures. It was a hybrid system, very resilient, very sort of grassroots. And up to today, as you said, it still holds because you can still see those cassettes
Yeah. And
when you go to those Ghanaian shops.
And I think I like that about, how you've sort of painted it's the truth. This is how things were during the 80s. But when it seems really dire, like if you have this political situation, but we find a way,
Yep.
to keep the music going.
Yeah, we have to find a way to keep the music going. I think I've been talking too much, haven't I?
No, well, I think maybe it's time for you to have a bit of a break.
I think I've been talking. So yes, we're gonna play some music. So what we just spoke about was industry structures. If you've just joined us,
Yeah.
right. So what I'm gonna play next is SK Opong. Does that ring a bell?
Well, I know it had a beautiful lady, a beautiful singer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a beautiful singer on there. It's a female singer. But SK Opong, remember, is a veteran of concert party.
Oh, yes.
The concert parties,
Yeah.
what we spoke about in episode 2. Episode 3.
Yeah.
What we spoke about in episode 3. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
So that was like in the 70s. He was a veteran of the concert parties. He went on to become a TV star, Osofudazi.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and now this is an album that he released in the 80s. This is called Ebusuyabone Special.
And who's the female singer?
The female singer is a surprise. I will tell you once she starts singing. But this is a female singer because as is the tradition here on HMD, we always try and pay our respects to female singers because let's face it, it's a male-dominated industry,
Yeah.
isn't it? So over here on HMD, on every episode, we play, on whatever sort of generation we cover, we play a star female or anything or any song that was composed, arranged, or probably sung by a female. So this is SK Opong and his Ebusuyabone Special. That's the name of the album. I haven't got a sleeve for this, I'm afraid, people, because this album I got without a sleeve is quite pricey as well, but I got this without a sleeve. So if you could bear with me a sec, I will cue the song and Abena I will tell you something nice.
Yeah, well, I was doing a bit of digging. You see, it's not only Bernard who digs. And I found something interesting. Well, it was interesting for me because I found out there was a lady who was a singer on the in the Sunsum band, not just Becky B, but this lady was called Della Hayes. And she was quite young. I think she was like late teens when she was in the band. And then she went on to perform in other places. But there's actually a book which talks about the role of women in high life music. I'm going to try and see if I can get it. But if you're interested, it's called Female High Life Performers in Ghana, Expression, Resistance and Advocacy. And it's by Nana Abena Amwa Rami, I think that's her name. So what's interesting about this lady is she was a musician. So I'm talking about Della Hayes. She was a musician and she learnt her craft in Birmingham, where I'm from.
Okay,
that's why I got excited. And then she became a nurse, which is, a common profession.
And your mum is a nurse?
Yeah, so I think this woman's my mum. No, just joking. No, but I just thought that was really interesting,
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned Della, but she was another musician in the Sunsum
Exactly.
band.
I mean, Smartin Cancer was actually a big fan of hers. That's why she got her to sing with him and Ejeku in the mid-80s, especially when they played live. And she was phenomenal. Paulina Odro as well.
Yeah.
We totally forgot about her.
But I think she's on the cover of one of the...
Yeah. So, yes, this is a Ebusuyabone special from
SK Opong.
SK Opong.
Odoye we mafi wo besmadaye
If you were just listening to us and listening to the song, you heard the honeyed tones of Beatrice Ajay, I believe, and that was an SK Opong song, wasn't it, Bernard?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. SK Opong.
Yeah. So
Yes.
she's got a really sweet voice.
Yes. I mean, Beatrice Ajay's voice. One second, let me stop that. Beatrice Ajay's voice is phenomenal. You know, to me, it's like really. She's one of the really obscure ones, you know, because this record in itself is what I call digital high life. This is a typical example of digital high life, because everything that is you look at the back of the sleeve and it's got 3 musicians.
Yeah.
You know, and everything is digitized. You're looking at a drum machine, a synthesizer for the horn to mimic the horn section. You've probably got a real guitar, but then it looks like that's it. So it's still guitar
Influence.
guitar band high life.
Yeah.
But it's
digitized.
digitized because you don't have real musicians. So that was yeah. So that was also another special part
He's
of this.
just rewriting the book on high life. Digital high life.
Yeah, digital high life.
I like them though. I like your words, man.
Digital high life, yes.
Okay. So, I mean, you've really given us you've given me a really good overview of a period in my life when I was growing up, when I listened to a lot of these songs, you see.
Yeah.
And I know that you'd said in the previous episode, about how you were quite keen on looking for high life music that had that funk influence.
Yeah.
And possibly these ones you may not have considered at the time.
Well, from my perspective as a digger, I think looking for records in 2006, 2007, I wasn't interested in Borga High Life. My ear was tuned for the warmer analog sound. I was not interested in the digital sound. So I think, there were instances in Ghana where I'd leave boxes full of 80s music from a distributor.
Oh, wow.
And in Makola.
Yeah.
And I'd just sort of leave it because I'm thinking, no, I don't want that. I want the Ofo Bros labels like the K Frimpons. I want a Mercury Dance Band, you know, De Frank. I wanted the real deals. I was not interested in sort of Borga High Life music.
So what do you think happened? Where did this shift come in terms of what diggers were looking for if it wasn't you?
Well, I think 80s Ghanaian music has now gotten really popular. This is mainly because you've got a new generations of younger DJs. I'm not saying I'm old. I'm not that old.
He's old.
You've got a younger generation of DJs who grew up to the 80s sound.
Yeah.
You know, they grew up listening to, if you're in the UK, you probably grew up listening to Rick Astley, or you grew up listening to like horrible banana. I mean, like
lovely
really
Bananarama.
Really.
No adjectives, just
I
say
know,
the name.
I know. I mean, sorry, my bad. I mean, that's how sort of bad it can get. But I wasn't really interested in the 80s sound. But these young crop of DJs, they grew up listening to that sound. So to them, it's familiar territory. It's familiar. I grew up listening to music with loads of synths and Simmons drums. So this is cool.
Is perfect.
This is really cool. But saying that as well, I have not become a convert, should I put it that way. But I think I have more grown to appreciate what these Borga High Life musicians did as artists.
Yeah.
You know, I've grown to appreciate what they did as artists, what they did as technicians.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing. Forget the fact that I was looking for 70s music. It's the fact that 80s sound is what's in now. You know, people produce music now, so it sounds like the 80s.
Yeah.
In Ghana, people are doing that now with, what's that guy's name?
Oh, gosh.
With Busum P.
Yeah, Busum P. Young, with that song that has a really strong Daddy Lumba.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's
Asabone, is it?
Yeah, but what was the name of the guy who sang the song though?
Oh, gosh.
Damn it.
Yes.
Right.
It's just escaped us.
This is what happens when you don't go to Ghana that often.
But
you forget things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was in Ghana last year, so I'm sort of not allowed
to forget.
Yeah.
And I was playing it off the chain, and I have no reason to forget either.
Exactly.
But anyway, I think you know which one. It was Asabone, I think. Yeah.
I think, I know the one you're talking about, because I remember it's got Bosun Piyong in it. So that is it. That is, you've got a new generation of people now who...
Paper.
Lord Paper. Yes, that's his name.
Yeah.
Lord Paper.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. You got good memory. So
we did it together. I said Paper, you said Lord.
Let's get back on track. So what was it again? So it was the fact that now you've got new younger DJs. They're familiar with the 80s sound. So what happens? Those 80s records now become collectible. You know, those 80s records now become sort of prized possessions.
Yeah.
You've got records that are going for thousands. You've got Aban, which means government, I think.
Yeah,
a US-based band. Their record is going for thousands.
Yeah.
Nana Tufo's records, too expensive. Charles Samuel's first record, £400. I mean, it's absolute madness.
I've got a soft spot for Charles.
So there you go. There's been a resurgence in 80s music because I think people's taste palettes have changed.
And I think that's what I like about these chats that we have, because it starts off so dire. I mean, you know, the music could have ended, you know, during that political period, but it didn't. It sort of adapted, and you've used that word many times, and it's shaped a lot of our lives, you know. And I almost feel like what maybe some of us rejected or didn't like so much, you know, it's circular. It comes around again, and we move into the next generation, which is hip life again, you know, hip hop, and how it moved and morphed into hip life.
Yep.
And again, we move forward into the 90s and the noughties with that music.
That cyclical process of music morphing every X amount of years due to external influences. And yes, come early 90s, mid 90s, there was hip hop, because in America it was all about Kumodi and Naughty by Nature and
MC Hammer. I was gonna say that's what I was thinking. MC Hammer. I'm sorry, I just lowered the tone, did I?
MC Hammer. Maybe you're probably thinking about the dance, but yeah.
Yeah. That was.
But I think the 90s, mid 90s, hip hop was the thing for the younger generation. You know, so come the 90s, Borga Highlife, mid-90s, 95, 94, 95, Borga Highlife was still it, but then the influence of hip-hop started seeping in gradually. And once again, there was another change.
And we have a current change, not to jump, but I'm thinking of drill music in Ghana now.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
In Kumasi.
That is fantastic. We've got drill music in Kumasi.
Yeah.
I think next time I go to Ghana, I will actually check it out.
But not to deviate, because I feel like, you know, I could talk about lots of things.
Yep.
I know that the focus for HMD series is always on live music.
Yes.
So, you know, as we move closer to the noughties, we see that sort of live music scene maybe diminish a bit, and I think this platform is to highlight and promote musicians that play live.
Yes.
So I believe for the next episode that will be the focus, won't it?
Yes. So just to reiterate on what you said again, I think it's quite dire, because now in Ghana, people that play live music do not really get a platform. They don't really get some sort of recognition to actually showcase what they do. And it's such a shame, because playing live music is vital. You know, live music is vital to everyone's soul. You know, you've got the pop musicians who would do something else other than sort of play live. It's fair enough. I mean, that is what they do. But here at HMD, we make it a point to stress on the point that it has to be live. So come episode 5, we will briefly touch on some of the other genres that spawned. Hip life, Afrobeats with an S,
yes,
Zonto. What else have we got now? Dance hall.
And yes, Oh, absolutely. Really big. Yeah.
Dance hall, I mean Afro dance hall, that's what they call
Yeah,
it now.
yeah. But we have lots. Afro trap. You
Well,
know, we
so
have drill, as I mentioned, you know.
well, I mean, drill is not necessarily Ghanaian, is it?
No, it's not. But then, you know, the same with the music prior to that, hip hop.
Yeah,
You know, it,
yeah.
it sort of fused and
Yeah,
became.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. So we will be focusing more on live music. So episode 5, we'll be looking at the people that are still bearing the torch. Those young musicians who still want to play live, despite the fact that they will not be sort of celebrities, because everyone who does music by Ghanaian terms has to be a celebrity. You know, we'll give those people the platform. We'll give them the chance to tell us their stories.
Yeah.
You know, we will actually look at them from outside the ring. Like, most of them are touring now.
Yeah.
You know, most of them play huge European stages.
Like
most of
Glastonbury.
them, Womad, you name
Yeah.
it, they've all played it. Most of them have released records on sort of UK labels, American labels. So I think come the next episode, we will be focusing on musicians that still play high life live.
Brilliant.
Yep.
So we hope that you'll join us. That will be our final, or the 5th one, the last one in our 5-part series.
Yep.
But if you've missed any of what we've been speaking about, we've got all of the shows on our, well, they're on Bernard's YouTube channel.
GoldenStool Project YouTube
Yeah.
channel.
And you can also find them on Miss B Writes as well, which is my other YouTube platform.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, if you're on Facebook, you can stream what we've been showing thus far on there as well. But please, if you have anything that you want to ask the man who knows, who keeps coming up with new terms, please please get in touch, and we'll also try and answer all those questions.
Great.
Yeah.
So I think this is the end of the party, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is the outro section, another song for you to play us out with. But before that, I think we may have some questions
Yes.
that came in early. I know that I have one.
Yeah.
So should we take it now or after?
Let's take the question now.
Okay, then. So this comes from Terence from Derby, and he's got an interesting question. He wants to know what you think would have happened if we hadn't have had the coup in Ghana, in terms of how that would have impacted on the music.
Well, I think I'll make it really sort of brief. If we hadn't had the coup, our music industry would have been maybe 2x, 3x bigger than the Nigerian music industry as it is now.
Wow.
Yep, it will be, because the Nigerian industry has thrived because there was no disruption. You know, so they had that old guard of expertise, they had that old guard of knowledge actually guide them through the generations. I think, why do you think the Nigerian musicians are the best in Africa? Is because they've got a very sustainable ecosystem that's been in place since the 50s.
But we've seen, like, with Highlife Music and Borga, because of the sort of migration of musicians, that changed the sound. So would you have seen more development with that golden age? Would it have been a longer period? Would our music...
Well, of course. I mean, it would have been not only a golden age, we would be living it as the Nigerians are doing now.
Okay.
Because the goodness would have continued as it did in Nigeria.
Okay.
So, yeah, if we hadn't had the coups, our music industry would have been bigger than Nigeria. That's all I can say.
Well, you heard it from the man who knows.
Yes. So, to round us off, I'm going for another not old timer, but he has been on the scene for a long time. Mr. Alan Cosmas. And this album is called Soca. I'm going to cue it.
Okay. Is it very soca-ish? No, carry on, carry on. As Bernard has said, and we've said sort of previously, do follow us, because we plan to be sharing more news, commentary, engaging with the Highlife musicians that are still on the scene, new and old. So we're on HMDSeries on Instagram and also on Twitter. And, you know, just drop us a line. We're here and we want to keep sharing this knowledge. Bernard?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So, yes, thank you very much for listening to us. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you to technical producer extraordinaire.
Yeah, Patrick
Ofosu.
Ofosu.
Sound engineer extraordinaire. Without Patrick, we wouldn't have all these nice images, as you can see. So we'll leave you with Alan Cosmos, and he calls this Yebi. This is a little bit disco techno edge, and you're gonna love it. So yes, thank you very much. You say good.
Thank you too, and join us. Yes, we'll be back shortly. We'll be back in the next couple of weeks before Christmas. Fingers crossed. And we'll be bringing you the final episode 5, where we talk to the new kids on the block. So yeah, stick with us.
Thank you.